and an overdose survivor and a recovery advocate, Sam Anthony Lucania.
Does anybody here know anybody that's overdosed? For those of you not raising your hand, you do now. Because that's how my wife found me in January 2013 after my overdose. But she didn't find me with a needle in my arm. It was prescription pain pills that almost took my life. I woke up in the ICU, handcuffed to a gurney and choking on a tube in my throat that was keeping me alive. And I'm so grateful that she found me when I did, because I didn't want to die. I just had no idea how to live. My name's Sam, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I've been arrested 6 times. I've been through 3 outpatient treatments. I've suffered 1 near-fatal overdose, and I've been in jail. But that's not who I really am. It's not how I want to be labeled. It's definitely not how I want to be remembered. Because the truth is, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a son. And like everybody sitting here today, I am a person. I'm a person that for a long time, I struggle with addiction. I am the face of addiction. It is not always toothless, it's not always homeless, and it is not always covered in track marks. Sometimes it's a guy that grew up a pretty normal life just like me. Now, before I go any further, I just want to let you guys know, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm not going to try to scare you with statistics. I'm not even going to stand here and say don't do drugs. But whenever I travel, I always try to think to myself, what am I going to talk about? What am I really going to focus on this time? What is it that God wants me to put on these people's hearts? And every once in a while, maybe I'll hear something in a song, or I'll come across something, on a podcast, or that I read in a book. And then every once in a while, God just gives you a sign. And that's what happened on this trip. Because I flew into St. Louis, and I'm driving from St. Louis to my hotel in Litchfield. And as I'm getting closer to my hotel, I see a sign. And I'm trying to read it as safely as possible from a distance while I'm driving. And as I get closer to this sign, I'm like, no, it doesn't really say that, does it? And I get a little closer, and I get a little closer, and I had to pull over in the gas station and walk across the street and look up, because sure enough, it said what I thought it said. Y'all got to be wondering by now, what did this sign say? Well, it said suicide. But underneath it, it said, the word suicide caught your attention, but it's the actions that lead up to suicide that go unnoticed. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some of those things that go unnoticed. I'm going to share my experience with you and my struggles. And I know somebody here is going to be able to relate, because we all struggle with something. And the problem is that some of those things that we're struggling with right now are going unnoticed, like the anxiety, the depression, the bullying, the family problems, the guilt, the fear, the shame, the addiction. You don't always get to choose the hand that you're dealt, but you always have a choice. You have a choice in whether you're going to recognize that these problems exist and try to seek some help for them, or if you're just going to ignore them. Brush them under the rug. Hope that they're going to go away. Or self-medicate like I did. How old do you guys think that I was when I took my first drink? Any guesses? 12. Who said that? 12 is correct. I was 12 years old when I took my first drink. Now, when people hear that, there's a lot of assumptions. That I come from a broken home, I was neglected or abused as a child. Addiction runs in my family. And if you want to know the truth, none of that applies to me. I was raised in a good home, no neglect, no abuse, no addiction in my family. But here's what was going on with me. I was full of anxiety. Everything made me anxious. Waking up, going to school, talking to girls, talking to anybody. I had no social skills because they didn't teach that thing in the classroom. And it wasn't being taught to me at home. In addition to this anxiety, I was also very insecure. I was insecure about my braces and my acne. At that time, all the other boys started to work out and gain muscle, and I was walking around all skin and bones. The girls that I liked didn't like me back. See, the way I felt about myself, I said this to somebody once. I was like, look, when I was younger, I felt like I wasn't smart, I wasn't funny, I wasn't handsome, I wasn't charming, I wasn't athletic, I wasn't academic. And they were like, I'm sure that wasn't true. Because I believed that it was true. That's how I felt about myself. And at the end of the day, I don't know what you guys thought about me, but I was always very concerned with what I thought you thought about me. You see, if I thought you thought I was ugly, I felt ugly. If I thought you thought I was dumb, I felt dumb. Who here worries about what other people think about them? Raise your hand and be honest. Ooh, that's a lot of honesty. For those of you that raised your hand, thank you for your honesty. Who here didn't raise your hand because you were worried about what the person next to you would have thought about you? If you raised your hand. That's an honest man right there. You know? And then there's still a couple people in here that even with all this laughter, you want to raise your hand and you want to laugh and you still won't. And that's okay. Because I know exactly how that feels, because that's how I felt my entire life until I took that drink. You see, when I took that drink, all those feelings went away. When I took that drink, there was no more anxiety, no more depression, and I didn't care what you thought about me. And that worked for a little while, until I realized that even after I started drinking, I was still comparing my insides to other people's outsides. All right? And I'm 40 years old, so we're talking way before social media, okay? Back then, I only had to worry about what I could see in front of me, okay? Now we got to worry about everybody's highlight reel, all right? I would walk the halls of the school, and I'd see somebody walk in with new sneakers or, new backpack or a cool haircut, and I'd start to think to myself, man, if I can get some of those things, I would feel better about myself. And eventually I did. I got some new sneakers, I got a new backpack, I got a new haircut. Not this one. And after I did those things, nothing changed. Because changing something about my appearance didn't fix the brokenness that I had inside. Has anybody here ever done that? Maybe we cut our hair a certain way. Ladies, we put on a little extra makeup. Started dressing a little bit different. Fellas, we did some extra push-ups. We got a piercing. We went tanning. We got a tattoo. If you've ever changed something about your appearance to make yourself feel better on the inside, raise your hand. Once again, thank you for your honesty. For those of you that raised your hand, I'm going to ask you a question I already know the answer to. Did anything change? Maybe for a little bit, right? Temporarily. But by changing something about your appearance, it's not going to fix the brokenness. But that's what society tells us. Society tells us if you buy these things, if you wear these things, if you go to these places, if you own this, then you're going to feel better. You're going to feel better if you just get some of that You guys acting like you don't know about the You know what I'm talking about. I'm smart now, but I want to be smarter. I'm rich now, but I want to be richer. I want to be bigger, faster, stronger, prettier, healthier. This depression's killing me. I'm going to go get high, but I'm going to want to be higher. Anybody know Chester Bennington, Lincoln Park? Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations? Stephanie Adams, she was a model and a millionaire before she was 30. Any music fans here? Avicii, he's an internationally known Swedish DJ. They all have two things in common. One, they all died by suicide. I don't have all the facts, but I know one thing's for sure. All that that they had couldn't fix what was going on with them. And if it couldn't fix them, It couldn't fix you. The other thing that I know is that a lot of them had problems with substance abuse. And I've got to wonder if, a lot like myself, they started off with gateway drugs or recreational drugs. We've all heard those terms before, right? Gateway drugs? All right, let's try this together on 3, okay? On the count of 3, you're going to tell me what is the gateway drug. 1, 2, 3. No. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. You ready? The gateway drug is the first one that you try. I do a lot of speaking in schools, and I tell these kids, if you're already drinking and vaping, that is your gateway drug. If the very first time you ever get highs on a line of cocaine, guess what? That is your gateway drug. But more importantly than that, it's not the substance that's gateway, it's the behavior. It's the behavior behind the intention of why you're doing what you're doing in the first place. You know? So when I'm in schools, I just straight out ask them, I say, what's going on with you guys in here that you can't go from one class to the other without vaping in the bathroom? But we're not in a school right now. We have a lot of adults here. So what's going on with us as adults that we can't go and socialize at a happy hour or at a holiday with people that share our blood, or with people that we spend 40 hours a week at work with, and not be comfortable until we have a red Solo cup in our hand or a cocktail? I'm not here to speak for anybody else, but for me, I could be at a party with 100 people, and I could feel like the only one in the room until I took something, until I drank something, until I smoked something. You see, that was my gateway behavior. Now, I said that at a school once, and a kid came up to me. He's like, all right, man, you got me. You actually made a little bit of sense. But what about recreational drug use? You know, just a little on the weekend with my friends. That's okay, right? I had to tell him, no, it's not, for 2 reasons. Number one, when I think recreation, I think skateboarding. I think paintball. I think cornhole. We're in Illinois, maybe cow tipping. My wife is from Illinois. She gave me permission to say that. She grew up in Peoria. But 2, and more importantly, is that every single person I know today that struggles with addiction, myself included, started off as a recreational drug user. You would not have been able to convince me in a million years, when I was drinking out of red Solo cups in my mom's basement and smoking blunts in the woods with my friends, that later on in life I'd be addicted to prescription pain pills. That happened to me too. But if you notice, the language shifted there, right? I said I got addicted to. This all started off with me trying to fit in, self-medicate. But then there's some things that I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how spiritual you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care how much money you or your parents do or do not have. You just can't fight the addiction. It's very easy to tell yourself you're going to take just one of something before you take it. But once whatever one is gets into your body, you lose the ability to control when you're going to take your next one or when you're going to take your last one. For me, it's usually when I end up in the ICU or handcuffs. I had surgery on my ankle when I was 16 years old, and I got sent home with a bottle of Percocet, and I took 1 pill. And I fell in love right away. Now, I'm a pretty smart guy. If 1 is good, 2 must be better, right? No. See, more is not better. More just means more. More almost killed me. I wonder if I would have known then what I know today about prescription pain medication if I still would have taken it. Because what I know today is that things like Demerol, Percocet, Dilaudid, Vicodin, OxyContin, all that stuff is heroin in a bottle. You want to know the difference? One comes from the dope man and the other one comes from the pharmacy. That is the only difference. And those pills run out. They always do. 1's too many and 100's never enough. So I went back to doing what I would normally do when the pills ran out, which is drink and get high on the weekend with my friends. Because I thought that's what you do in high school. At least that's what I did. At some point, I can't really tell you when, the weekend became the weeknights. And then the weeknights became the week mornings. And then at some point, I actually found myself getting drunk and high alone. I don't know if anybody here has ever gotten drunk or high alone, but it is a lonely, lonely place. And I do not wish it upon anybody. That behavior of mine continued so much, I didn't even graduate high school in time. And after high school, my life was filled with what we call not yets. Now, everybody in here, no matter how young or how old, the rest of your life is just filled with not yets. It's just up to you whether they're going to be positive or whether they're going to be negative. Now, you're probably wondering what I mean by that, so I'm going to give you a couple examples. When I was 12 years old, I saw my dad smoking cigarettes. I'm going to be honest, my dad looked real cool when he would smoke cigarettes. I wanted to look cool too, but I told myself I'm never going to smoke cigarettes. Not yet. When I started smoking cigarettes, I saw what I thought were the popular kids in high school smoking weed. Well, I wanted to be popular too, but I told myself I'm never going to smoke weed. Not yet. When I started smoking weed, I said, this guy's never going to do hard drugs. Y'all see where I'm going with this? Doing cocaine was a not yet for me. But at the time, all my friends started to do it, and that's when I started to think that all my problems were situational. All my problems had to do with people, places, and things. All my problems have to do with New Jersey, which is where I grew up. You know, if I could just get out of here and get away from them, I'll be just fine. And I know there's some people in here that think that you feel the same way. You know, if I didn't live here, you know, if that person wasn't my teacher, if they weren't my neighbor, if I didn't live in this neighborhood, if I didn't have this job, if that person wasn't my boss. And at the end of the day, none of those things were my problem. My problem was me. Because even after I left New Jersey and moved down to Virginia, all that stuff that I talked about came with me. All that anxiety, all that fear, all that insecurity, all that doubt, all that depression, all that addiction, it just followed me down to Virginia. And when I got down there, I was going nowhere fast. I was renting a room in a townhouse, sleeping in a mattress on the floor, bartending, and slowly dying inside. Now, back then, I had a roommate named Jesse. And every night, when I would get off my bartending shift, me and Jesse, we would drink and we would take pills together. But one night when I got home, something was different. Because there was this one night when I got home, there was a couple emergency vehicles in front of my home. On that night when I got home, Jesse's brother ran up to me, and he had tears in his eyes and a sick look on his face. And on that night when I got home, he told me that Jesse committed suicide. And it was in that moment that I stepped back and I started to I had the thought that I think a lot of people who have been in that situation start to think, which is, what did I miss? Did he say something to me? Did I miss something? Is there something I could have said? And it wasn't until later on in life that somebody taught me the 3 C's of helping somebody else. And the 3 C's of helping somebody else are this, and I wish I would have known that back then, because maybe I would have handled the situation a lot better. But the 3 C's are this: whatever was going on with Jesse, I didn't cause it. Whatever was going on with him, there's nothing I can do to change it. And whatever was going on with him, there's nothing I can do to cure it. When it comes to helping other people, you're responsible for the effort, not the outcome. You see, I never needed a reason to drink or take drugs. It could have been a good day, it could have been a bad day. I might have gotten promoted, I might have gotten fired, I might have gotten a date, I might have gotten dumped. It didn't matter, it's just how I dealt with life. So what do y'all think I did after I found out my roommate died? I drank and I got high. It's the only way I knew how to live, how to wake up in the morning, how to go to sleep at night. And it's usually at that point in my life where people come up to me and they ask me this question. They say, Sam, why can't you stop drinking and using drugs, dude? Can't you see the way you're living your life isn't working out? You've been arrested how many times? You've been through how many treatments? Your friend just died. Why can't you stop? And looking back, the answer is actually quite simple. When I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm mentally fit, when I'm physically fit, when I'm spiritually fit, when I'm going to meetings, when I'm talking with my counselor, when I'm working out, when I'm listening to the positive and uplifting music and watching it on TV and surrounding myself with positive, influential people, you can't touch me. Nothing can shake me. Nothing gets in my way. There's nothing I cannot handle sober. When I'm not those 3 things. If you knew how I felt in here, the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, the shame, the isolation, the desperation. If you knew that's how I felt, you wouldn't ask me why I did it. So what I'm saying is to the person in here that might be struggling with something is, I know exactly how you feel when you're not cutting yourself. I know exactly how you feel when you're not starving yourself. I know exactly how you feel when you're not dressing like that and covered in makeup. I know exactly how you feel when you're not drinking that drink and taking those pills. But I want you guys to listen to this. And if you haven't heard anything I've said all morning, I just hope you hear this. If you knew how I felt in here, once I finally opened up and told somebody how I felt in here, it was absolute freedom. It was hands down the most rewarding thing I have ever done in my entire life. The problem is I was always too scared. I couldn't come up to you and tell you I've got so much depression I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. I couldn't come up to you and tell you I've got so much anxiety I don't want to leave the house every day. There's no way that you're going to understand the amount of pills that I'm taking on a daily basis. You see, I had met with a counselor before, and him and I, we didn't connect. So I thought counseling didn't work. You know, nobody told me that counseling is a lot like dating. Who here is married? I mean, married folks in the audience? All right, to my married friends. Before you got married, you went on a bad date at some point in your life, right? Okay. After you went on that bad date, did you just stop dating altogether, or did you continue to date until you found the person that you were compatible with? Well, guess what? Counseling is the same way. Sometimes you're going to have to meet with a couple of people before you find the right one that you're compatible with. But once you do, it's worth the wait and it's worth the effort and it's very rewarding. The problem is, by the time I found this out, it was almost too late. You see, somebody once told me a long time ago, you're only as sick as your secrets. And if that's true, then I was pretty sick. I was actually dying inside. And looking back, I can see my behavior is pretty suicidal. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear that term, I kind of picture my friend Jesse. You know, somebody sitting on their bed, writing their final letter, with a bottle of pills in their hand, ready to end it all. And yes, that's one form of being suicidal. It's the last step, in fact. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing romantic about it. But then there's another form, and it's the kind that I was. And it's defined as being destructive to one's own interests. And that was me. Living life with my foot on the gas pedal, total disregard for everybody. Taking handfuls of pills, washing it down with a fifth of vodka, not caring how it impacted me or anybody around me. Now, if you're paying attention, you got to be asking yourself, Sam, how did it get the handfuls of pills and a fifth of vodka? It didn't start that way, did it? No, it did not. It started off with one drink that came from my parents' liquor cabinet as a 12-year-old boy. It started off with one pill that came from the doctor that was prescribed to me at 16 years old. Now, you guys have heard me talk about pills a few times, and there's a very specific reason for that. Now, I've been addicted to a lot of things, and this is not me bragging because, honestly, it is not worth bragging about. But I was a pack of Newports a day smoker for 10 years. I was a wake and bake weed smoker for almost 10 years. I was addicted to ecstasy, powder cocaine, prescription pills, Xanax, Adderalls, Oxys. Hands down, the hardest drugs I've ever had to get off of in my entire life. They almost killed me. But looking back, what I've learned was it wasn't about getting really high or getting really low. It wasn't about anti-anxiety medication or antidepressants or anti-pain medication. It was all anti-Sam medication. I just didn't want to be right here anymore. And trying to get out of right here one night almost cost me my life. I was not trying to kill myself that night. I really wasn't. I was just trying to get out of right here before my wife got home. I did not want my wife to have to find me like that and give me CPR until the medics showed up. I did not want my wife to have to wait outside of the room of the ICU with the doctors telling her, we don't know if Sammy's going to wake up. I did not want my parents to have to drive from New Jersey to Virginia only to drive to a hospital that they didn't know whether their son was going to be dead or alive. And I saw my hospital report. And I'm standing here tonight before you telling you it is only by the grace of God that I am alive. And I'm so grateful for that. Because like I said, I didn't want to die. I just had no idea how to live. So what I did is I did the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. and I asked for help. Do you guys believe that? Do you believe that one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my entire life is ask for help? Yeah? What are some of the things that get in our way? What are some of the reasons why we wouldn't ask somebody for help? Pride. What else? Fear. What else? Trust. What else? Shame. So these are the answers that I hear all the time. But there's one answer that always holds true, but I never hear it. And I know the person's here today. And one answer is that, well, I can't go and ask for help with my problems because I'm the person that everybody comes to talk to about their problems. Do I have that person in the audience today? Is that person, if you're that person that you're just the shoulder that everybody goes to cry on, raise your hand. Where's that person at? You? You're the person? Okay, I need 2 volunteers. Would you 2 ladies mind helping me out with something really quick? I'm not going to embarrass you, I promise. All you got to do is stand here. Can I borrow you 2? Come here. All right, what's your name? Chloe. I had a Chloe yesterday that was a volunteer. All right, come here. What's your name? Ressie. I'm sorry? Ressie. Okay, Ressie and Chloe. Okay. All right. Chloe, stand right here. Ressie, do me a favor and stand right here. Okay. So, Chloe's the friend that everybody comes to. She's the shoulder to cry on. When everybody has a problem, they just come running to Chloe. Okay? See, my friend Ressie here, she struggles with addiction. My friend Ressie here, she's got problems at home with her family. My friend Ressie here seems to be getting bullied at school. You can see that some of her problems are bigger or smaller than others. You know, she's suffering from depression. These problems are overwhelming. She can't even hold on to all of them sometimes. She's also struggling with anxiety. And being as sick as your secrets, they're slowly killing her inside. So she's going to go and talk to Chloe about her depression. And she's going to talk to Chloe about her anxiety. And she's going to talk to Chloe about her bullying. And she's going to talk to Chloe about what's going on in her household with her parents. And she's also going to tell her that she's struggling with addiction. And since she's talked to Chloe about all these things, now she's feeling a lot better and she's going to be able to sleep just fine tonight. Thank you. Go sit down. But the problem is, even though these problems are not hers, she's going to have a very difficult time sleeping tonight knowing that her friend is going through all these problems. And unless she finds somebody to talk to and hand these problems over to so she can make room to take on new problems, whether they're hers or somebody else's, she's never going to be able to get to sleep at night. Okay? And you can't give away something that you're not practicing yourself. Thank you. Now, I'm going to get vulnerable with you guys for a second. I know I've really been holding back and you guys really don't know that much about me. In the beginning of 2020, that was my time. The beginning of 2020 was awesome for me. I was traveling all over the U.S. I was making good money. My wife and I just bought a house. We just had our second kid. Like, life was amazing. And then this thing called COVID happened. And every event that I had on the books canceled. They all called me and said, we want our deposits back. I had no money coming in, and I literally became a stay-at-home dad overnight. And at first, I was okay. But slowly, I allowed a bad moment to turn into a bad day, to turn into a bad week, to turn into a bad month, to turn into it seemed like a year. And I can give you all the reasons why I relapsed. Churches were closed, 12-step meetings were closed, gyms were closed. I don't do good with social distancing, contact, isolation, quarantine. The reality is, I used to say that COVID messed me up. COVID did not mess me up. The way I responded, or my lack of response to COVID, my inability to adapt and pivot and change when a curveball was thrown my way, messed me up. And I knew what I needed to do. I needed to get back to my mental fitness, my physical fitness, and my spiritual fitness. But I also knew that this time I wanted to talk to somebody. I wanted to speak with a professional counselor and work some things out. So I started calling counselors. And I called 12 counselors over the course of 3 days, only to hear back from 2 of them that they are not accepting new patients. And I was getting really frustrated. I was getting disheartened. So I just went on social media, and I went on Facebook, and I basically just told Facebook what I told you. There's some stuff going on. I want to talk to a counselor. Nobody's getting back to me. Bleh. I don't know what I was looking for. I was just venting, right? But what happened next was absolutely remarkable. I got dozens of text messages, phone calls, emails, DMs from my older friends. DMs is direct message. And I got DMs of people reaching out to me saying, hey man, if you need to talk, I'm here. I'm not a counselor, but you can call me anytime. This is the name and number of my counselor. I think they're accepting new patients. I actually got an appointment on an app, and I meet with my counselor virtually, and I was able to do it in 24 hours. And I had to step back for a second and just take a deep breath, because I was like, why me? Why are all these people reaching out to me right now? I'm not popular. I'm not famous. In fact, I think I'm quite ordinary. But if there's one thing that I've learned to do to keep myself mentally and emotionally well and healthy, is take my ordinary problems and share them extraordinarily well. Now I'm going to pause here for a second, because I might have offended somebody because I just called your problems ordinary. Look, ordinary doesn't mean your problems are not a big deal and they're not remarkable. Ordinary just means common. Okay? And look, I'm sorry that what happened to you when you were a little kid is common. I'm sorry that you can't stop cutting and starving yourself is common. I'm sorry that you're having those problems in your family right now are common. I'm sorry that you're having that problem with depression and drinking and addiction is common, but it is. In fact, let's prove it. I need everybody's participation and your honesty. If you know somebody that self-harms or has attempted suicide, stand up. If you know somebody that struggles with anxiety, stand up. If you know somebody that struggles with depression, stand up. If you know somebody that struggles with addiction, stand up. What was that, 4 things? I'd say we all have something in common. But I bet when you all walked through the door today, you thought that you were the only one. You thought your problem was unique. It's not. It's ordinary and it's common. Thank you. Go ahead and sit down. And what I want to tell you about your problems is that it's okay. Yeah, it's okay to not be okay. That's not what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying is it's okay. It's okay if whatever you're going through is a big deal to you. It's okay if whatever you're going through somebody else thinks is not a big deal. What's not okay is for you to determine the size of your problem based on how somebody else handled that problem. People used to do that to me all the time. They'd be like, yo, man, what's up with your drinking, dude? I had a problem with the bottle a few years ago. I just put it down, and now I'm doing great. I'm like, yo, man, that's good for you, bro, but this drink is killing me. It's ruining my marriage, and I'm going to lose my job over it. Do not let other people make your problems small. Just because somebody else met with a counselor 2 times and they were able to get over their anxiety does not mean that has to be your story. Do not let other people make your problems small. But at the same time, don't make your own problems small. You see, it's a very common defense mechanism. I used to do it all the time. You know, somebody would say, yo, man, you okay? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, I saw you last week, man. You fell down a flight of stairs. You crashed your car. You were saying really inappropriate things. I'm like, yeah, man, don't worry about me. I'm good. It's okay. It only happened once. You see, I was making my problems small because if I make my problems small, you feel like you don't have to help me. It's my way of pushing you away. I'm also a personal trainer. And back home, I train people out of my garage. And I was training this 16-year-old kid one time. And I had him turn around and jump up and hang from the bar, and he was getting ready to do some pull-ups. And I saw his wrist. And I asked him because I care. I said, hey, man, is everything okay? And right away, he stepped back and put his hand in his pocket. He said, yeah, man, I'm good. It only happened once. But I remember looking at it. There was 4 of them. You see, he was making his problem small because it was his way of pushing me away. Maybe he thought he was going to get labeled or judged. Maybe he thought that he was going to receive some stigma. There's a lot of talk about that, right? Can't get help for your problems with mental health because you're going to receive some stigma. Look, I'm only going to say this once, okay? Screw stigma. Because you're going to get stigma whether you get help or not, so you might as well get the help that you need so you're in a good frame of mind to deal with the stigma when it comes. Because it's going to happen. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. So the year's 2019. It's Christmas Eve, and I'm sitting on the couch with my wife and my 2 boys watching The Grinch. And my phone was on the table, and I saw it light up, and it was a direct message on social media. And I just glanced down really quick, and I recognized right away this is not a happy message. So I just let it ride for a second. And a few months prior to this, I took one of my promotional speaking videos, and I shared it to a community page on Facebook, basically saying, hey, man, I'm trying to do some good in the community. I changed my life around. Would you share this with your network? Back in 2015, my addiction unfortunately took me a place I did not want to go, and I went into a friend's house uninvited. I stole her OxyContin, and I got charged with 2 counts of breaking and entering. Well, on Christmas Eve 2019, whoever moderates that page decided to respond to my request for sharing the video. And this is what they said. No posting on this page, bro. The people you robbed were good friends of mine. I don't care if you've changed your life around. 0 tolerance. And it's at that moment that I realized you always have a choice. You might not be able to choose the way that people treat you. You might not be able to choose the things that people say to you, but you always have a choice. You have a choice in the way you allow it to impact you emotionally and mentally, and you have a choice in the way that you respond. So because I was in a good frame of mind and I was in a good place, mentally, physically, and spiritually, I responded with grace, and I said, no problem, man. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And whoever that was taking shots at me anonymously from behind their keyboard responded with a middle finger emoji. And that's the perfect example of, look, I was going to get that stigma whether I was in a good frame of mind or not. If I wasn't in a good place, I would have responded to that a lot different. I'm telling you, it wouldn't have been so Christian-like. But you know what? I don't know who that is. And the truth is, I really don't care. You know, whoever that is, I'm always going to be a criminal. I'm always going to be a thief, and I'm always going to be a junkie. And that's okay, because his memory of me doesn't have to define who I am or the person I'm trying to become. Somebody's memory of you does not have to determine who you are or the person you want to be. And that's the best thing about writing your own story. It's your narrative, not somebody else's. You can change the plot, the twist, the characters, and the location anytime that you want. You might meet 2 different people and say, hey, who is Sam Anthony? Well, if you meet this guy, he's going to say Sam Anthony's a criminal, a thief, a liar, a cheat, and a junkie. Guess what? He's right. Because at one point I was all those things. You might meet somebody else and say, hey, who is Sam Anthony? And they're going to say, you know, he's good people, man. He's been married 10 years. He's got 3 kids. He goes around and tries to use his experience as a lesson for somebody else. He's a good dude. Guess what? They're right. Because that's who I am today, and that's the most important thing. I want to leave everybody with 3 takeaways really quick, and then we're gonna close it up, and I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. So I'm all about making sure that, you know, you guys walk away with a couple things that you might be able to you know, implement and, you know, use in your daily life. And hopefully these next couple things inspire you to make some changes in the way that you think, act, and feel. So the first one is watch what you consume before it consumes you. And what I'm talking about here is things like music, television, news, social media, gaming, relationships. Because all those things that you take in on a daily basis have a huge influence in the way that you think, act, and feel, and the things that you say. Here's what I mean by that. So I refer to myself as a spiritual person, right? Well, at some point today, when this conference is over, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to leave. When I leave, if everybody else is in the parking lot and they watch me drive off with my windows down and I'm listening to some rapper sell crack and smack hoes on the radio, that's not very spiritual now, is it? No, it is not. You got to watch what you consume because it will consume you. It will become a part of you. If you're constantly listening to music that is mother F this and F that, eventually an F-bomb will fly out of your mouth. If you are at home watching movies where they're disrespecting women or sniffing cocaine or shooting drugs, eventually that's going to impact the way that you think, act, and feel. The same thing with watching pornography. The same things with the video games that my young friends play. Or if you have kids, you're letting your kids play. Nothing wrong with video games, but if they're picking up prostitutes and stealing cars for sport, maybe there's a better use of their time. And it's the same thing with social media. If we're constantly scrolling through social media, I always say, you can consume content or you can produce content. If you're going to produce content, produce something that's going to make somebody else's life better. If you're consuming content, make sure that you're not playing the comparison game. I'd say one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard about social media was this. Before you post anything on social media, ask yourself these 3 questions. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? Does this need to be said by me right now? If you cannot answer yes to all 3 of those questions, maybe you should keep your post or your comment to yourself. Number 2, learn to ask for help when it's offered to you. Learn to accept help when it's offered to you. Learn to ask for help when you need it. Learn to offer help when you see somebody else in need. Okay? Society nowadays tells us that, you shouldn't ask for help, you shouldn't need help, you shouldn't want help, your pride gets in the way, man up, rub some dirt on it, you got this. That is not necessarily true. I personally believe that everybody is a failure alone, but no one is a success by themselves. And last but not least, motivation is a lot like showers. Did everybody here take a shower last night or this morning? More hands? All right, what I mean by that is the shower that you took this morning is not going to keep you clean tomorrow. It would probably benefit you all to shower tomorrow and the next day. Well, guess what? This applies to everything in your life, okay? This applies to your diet, okay? The way that you're eating healthy right now is not going to keep you fulfilled, nourished, and healthy a month from now, okay? The scripture that you read this morning and a devotional you did is not going to keep you close to God 3 weeks from now. The workout that you did this morning or the mile that you ran is not going to keep you fit 2 months from now, okay? Everything that you do in your life, from spirituality to sobriety, to mental wellness, to emotional health, to academics, to physical fitness, it is all a daily grind. It needs to be practiced and repeated, practiced and repeated, practiced and repeated. That's why I've failed so many times doing this thing that I call sobriety. It's why I've relapsed so many times. And it's why every time that I've relapsed and I've came back to a round, and whether I came back to a round to a 12-step meeting or a peer recovery group or a church, one of the first things I always do is say, I found God. No, I didn't. God wasn't lost. I was. I'm going to go ahead and close with Luke 15. So in Luke 15, Jesus tells the parable of the lost sheep. And he says, suppose one of you has 100 sheep, and he loses one of them. Don't you leave the 99 in the open field to go find the one lost sheep? And when he finds it, he comes back and he rejoices and celebrates because he found the lost one. You see, I believe that he uses that parable as a metaphor for a lost soul, for a lost man like myself. Because we're the ones that are lost, not him. And if he can find me, 6 arrests, 3 treatments, 1 overdose, chronic relapser, liar, thief, cheat, junkie. If he can find me, then he can find anyone. And one of the most beautiful things that's ever happened to me is that God took the ugliest, the darkest, the nastiest, and the filthiest parts of my life, and he didn't just fix them, because that would have been too easy. He actually turned them into something beautiful. I was lied to when I got sober. And I won't lie to you guys. When I got sober, they told me that if I get sober and they stay sober, my dreams will become reality. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, that was a lie. And I will not lie to you. Because if you get sober and you stay sober, if you get close to God, you find God and you stay with God, your reality will actually surpass your dreams. I never dreamed of taking the TEDx stage. I never dreamed of writing a book. I never dreamed of traveling and telling my story to people like you in hopes that I might have an impact on your life. That was not a part of my dream. But here's the thing. If you have a dream like I do, you're not going to be able to hear what he's saying to you over the sound of the pill bottle. I said, if you have a dream like I do, you're not going to be able to hear what God is trying to tell you over the sound of the pill bottle. You're not going to be able to see the miracles that God is trying to work in your life if you're looking through drunk goggles in a cloud of smoke. You're not going to be able to feel the impact that God can have on your spirit if you're constantly hurting yourself. I was the lost one, and I'm so grateful. I always used to say that I turned my back on God, but he never turned his back on me. Is there anybody here that feels like they've turned their back on God lately? Is there anybody here that's ready to be found? Is anybody feeling a little bit lost? Is anybody tired of hiding from him? If that's you, are you willing to stand with me? If you're feeling a little bit lost right now, if you feel like there's a miracle that God can work in your life, would you stand with me? Nobody's going to laugh at you. There will be no embarrassment. I can promise you that. If you know deep down in your heart that God's been struggling to find you, just trying to knock down those doors so he can touch your heart, just repeat after me. You don't have to say this out loud. You can just say it to yourself. Say, Lord, I'm tired of running. Lord, I'm tired of hiding. Lord, I'm ready for you to find me. I'm ready for you to have all of me. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm ready for you to turn my darkness into light. I'm ready to come to you in times of need. And I'm ready to praise you in times of triumph. Amen. If you guys prayed that with me, I just want to congratulate you on making one of the most important decisions. On making one of the most important decisions that you might have ever made in your entire life. Because there is not a day that goes by that I don't thank God for everything that he has done for me and my family. I'm just so grateful I had the opportunity to come here and share with you guys. I'm going to be here hanging out. I don't know if we're doing an intermission right now, or if we're going to do question and answer, or what's going to happen next. But if you want to talk to somebody, I'm going to be available to talk to. We have all the ladies from Crossover Ministries. We've got some counselors here. If there's something that you feel is weighing you down and you're ready to talk to, there's no better time than right now. So thank you all very much for having me. Thank you.